Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's Planning Applications Committee meeting on the 18th of April 2023. I'll start off with the evacuation procedures because I know we've got a lot of people who don't regularly attend. So a fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Lloyds Bank building on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door by which you entered the room or by the fire exits, which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded for future publication on the council website. Please can I ask that you turn your mobile phone off or ensure that it's set to silent for the duration of this meeting. Okay, item number 2, apologies. I believe we have a full house of members, so I won't ask. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Green. He's running a little late. Okay, so thank you. So we'll make sure that's duly noted. Item number 3, minutes. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look through the minutes from a previous meeting. Are there any issues or problems that anyone wishes to raise on those? Okay, are you all happy for me to sign those off? Okay, I'll sign those off then. Just make sure that's all of them. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest not included on the schedule? Councillor Shires.
It's not a declaration of interest really, but of contact. I'm not sure if anybody else had a letter in the post regarding one of the items.
Yeah, that would that come under declarations of contacts. That's fine. I think we've all received the letter that you're referring to. Has everyone had a copy of that? I know I've spoken to some members. Yes. Okay. So if we can have that as a, that was, which item was it? Number 3. There we go. Without me looking at my agenda yet. Okay, so if you could enter that for all members, please. Any further declarations of interest? Councillor Wilson. Contacts. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. My declaration of contact is that in relation to application number 3, the Crow's Nest, I have been contacted by several residents and businesses in the area about the application. I gave them the same information that I'm on the planning committee, that I can't express any view one way or the other until I actually get to the committee, although I did give them some procedural information only. That was it. So I haven't prejudiced myself in any way, shape or form.
Okay, thank you. I will also go on record as a declaration of contact on the same item, on the Crowhill item, because I actually do some of my shopping in some of those shops. So I do from time to time talk to the shop owners. However, I have in no way discussed the upcoming item on tonight's agenda with any of them. Councillor Smith.
You can add me to that list for exactly the same reasons.
Okay, Councillor Shepherd. Okay, and Councillor Shepherd. Goodness, very popular, isn't it, the Crowhill shops? Okay, any further declarations of contact? Yeah, Councillor Hartshorn. Yes, we've already entered everyone in for that. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item, then we'll start with our agenda. Then, so we'll go to Darren now, who will deliver our first presentation of the evening on Padge Hill Farm.
Thank you, Chair. As members will recall from the previous committee in March, this application is a hybrid planning application comprising an outline application for development of distribution and industrial buildings, including ancillary offices, earthworks, green infrastructure and landscaping, and the demolition of the existing buildings, and a full application for the development of a distribution building, use class B8, including ancillary offices with associated access, hard standing, parking, earthworks and landscaping at Padge Hill Farm on Watling Street, Hinckley. Members will also recall that the application is a cross-boundary application. Apologies. The slide... Sorry, my computer's... slide being displayed shows the administrative boundaries of each local authority in the pink. The image on the right-hand side shows the approximate area of the development falling within the council's administrative boundary. The application has been called in by Councillor Wilson on the grounds that the development relates to strategic development which would have impacts on the borough. Additionally, the application has also received a level of neighbour representation in the form of both objection and support, which would both trigger the application to be decided by Planning Applications Committee. Further to this, the application relates to an EIA development and has been accompanied by an environmental impact assessment. The application was taken to Rugby Borough Council's Planning Applications Committee on the 15th of March, where members resolved to grant that permission. The application is being brought back to this committee as the previous resolution was to approve without a legal agreement. However, members are now advised that a Section 106 legal agreement would be required to secure a small section of safeguarded land adjacent to the A5, which is required in connection to the improvement scheme to the A5 and falls within this administrative boundary. The entire stretch of the safeguarded land to the southwestern edge of the A5 falls within the administrative boundary of all three authorities. In addition, a footway cycleway link which is proposed to connect the site to the west of the Longshoot, across third-party land and across land owned by the council, is also proposed to be secured under the same legal agreement. As advised within Section 3 of the agenda, the council considers it premature to confirm any use of the land owned by the council for this purpose until the council have completed a new parks and green spaces strategy. However, a Section 106 legal agreement is proposed to be entered into in the event that the connection is achievable in the future. The agent for the application has confirmed that the third-party landowner has agreed to both the principle of the footway cycle link and that they will need to be included as a signatory in the Section 106. All of the matters remain the same as previously presented to members back in March. The recommendation is therefore one of approval, subject to a legal agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I have one speaker on this, and that's the acting on behalf of the agent, which is Mr. Steve Harley. Do you have Mr. Harley here? If you wouldn't mind, just in case he's wandered into one of those rooms accidentally. Mr. Harley, yes. Okay, well, I'm afraid we will have to move on without him, unfortunately. Do I have any... Sorry. So before us, then, as we haven't got our speaker then, we've got a recommendation before us to recommend and grant planning permission subject to the conditions printed and subject to the applicant entering into Section 106 legal agreement. Do I have a proposer and a seconder for that? So Councillor Hartshorn as our proposer, and do I have a seconder? And Councillor Markham. Okay, so I'll now open the floor for any members. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was me who called it in what feels like an age ago now when it first came up on the planning list. The reason I did so, Chair, is because we have a number of cross-boundary applications either in the system or pending or about to come into the system. And I feel it's important to make sure that, yes, whilst these might be majority outside the borough, indeed all outside the borough, but we are still a consultee, that we are making sure that we keep our eye on the ball on these, Chair. I know it's very easy to just focus on the big things inside, but this is technically outside of our approved borough plan in terms of commercial property and development, etc., and making sure that critically we get the appropriate Section 106 contributions necessary to protect the interests of our borough. And I think this is a case which actually highlights that before the recommendation was approval without 106, but it's had to come back with 106 this time. And I'm not blaming anyone, things happen, but it just goes to prove the point that there is a potential impact on the residents of Nuneaton and Bedworth, especially in this area where they've already had a large degree of development over the years thanks to the existing borough plan. And it's on a major arterial route in and out of the borough. So I would want to make sure that our interests are protected, that the impact on the highway network is considered, and that we are satisfied as a local authority, not just leaving it down to Rugby or Hinckley or whoever, that we are satisfied that our interests are protected. Because the A5, we all know, if the M6 goes down, and that may be the case tonight, I don't know, but if the M6 goes down, we all get all the other traffic gets routed through Nuneaton and out onto the A5. So those are my reasons, Chair. As it happens, it appears to be okay, but we can't guarantee that for every other application. So I think this is it was more a test case in my view to check all this out. And I hope that officers will take it in the spirit it's intended, and keep an eye on any of these consultation or cross-boundary applications to make sure that if we are due 106s, we use our elbows appropriately to get around that table and make sure we get what's owed to us in Nuneaton and Bedworth. So that was my reasoning, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I will come back, so I appreciate you weren't here at the previous meeting when we discussed it. But I mean, obviously, that formed the core part of our discussion as a group, looking and discussing the Section 106 side, and obviously where that money might need to be sort of used. And I think it's good that we are raising these things because, you know, as our residents do not want us to, you know, let this money that we are entitled to get you know, lost either in the ether or going to other authorities when it's due to the residents of this borough. So I think we all kind of wholeheartedly agreed with that as a principle. Sorry, Councillor Cape.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Wilson, because a lot of what he was briefly touching on there was what I actually raised at the last meeting in March. I've since gone back and reread this and done a little bit of driving around the area again myself. And what's concerning me about this is that the focus of all the modelling that has been done on the impact of the road traffic network, and also the lowering of the A5 bridge, which might provide some small improvement on that side of the development. Nothing has been done in here to address specifically Woodford Lane, which is an accident black spot at the moment, where it's almost impossible for people at certain peak times, and if the traffic is rerouted, as Chris has said, you just can't get out there. So there's been many accidents on Woodford Lane. At the Red Gate, there's a small mini roundabout set up at the moment whereby you filter right to go towards Bosworth and that direction. Again, if the traffic increases, it is effectively a single lane going further up the A5 towards Woodford Lane, which I just mentioned. And then finally, the long shoot itself, you know, that junction, which we know is already under pressure. So I haven't seen anything in here that specifically addresses those issues, never mind the S106 money for the rest of the impact. And what I would be asking is, are there any conditions that can be put on to actually say that the only time traffic coming from this site can go through Nuneaton is if they're rerouted by the police as an emergency, and that it's not just a route of choice and convenience for the drivers, which is the case on several other developments which have happened with cross-boundary agreement. So I'm still really concerned about the impact of the traffic further along the A5 towards Tamworth.
Yeah, obviously, just to raise the point that members did make a decision on this application at the last committee, we are only bringing it back for your consideration of the Section 106 agreement and ourselves being party to that agreement. So unfortunately, that is all we can discuss at the meeting tonight. It's that Section 106 element.
Okay, Councillor Cape, any sort of follow-up questions on that? or statements? No follow-up question. Okay. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this matter? Is that yes, Councillor Hart, or no? Okay, in that case, if there's no other members, I will go to a vote. So all those in favour of granting permission? Okay, against? Abstentions? Okay, so that has been approved. Okay, we'll now have a short pause because for our next item we have a large number of members of the public. So we will now sort of bring them into the room. So for those people who are watching at home, please bear with us while we allow those people to enter the chamber and to get seated. Okay, good evening and welcome to all the residents who have joined us for our second agenda item, which is on Hospital Lane. I think we've got everybody in now that wants to listen in on this item. So I'll ask Darren now to start the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joe. I'll just wait for the stream to catch up with my presentation. Thanks, Chair. This application is for a development of up to 455 dwellings, a 1.4 hectare district centre including up to 55 senior living units and approximately 2,000 square metres of floor space in use classes E, F1 and F2, which are retail, non-residential institutions in community uses, with associated infrastructure and open space. It is an outline application including access only, with all of the matters reserved for consideration at a later date. The site is currently agricultural land. Hospital Lane is to the west of the site, with residential properties to the south, east and north. Nuneaton Primary School and Anderton playing fields are to the north. There are 2 public footpaths that run through the site. As members will have seen from the agenda, there are several key issues. These are the principle of the development, affordable housing, visual amenity and landscape character, residential amenity, highway safety and accessibility, the uses on the site, flood risk and drainage, contamination and land stability, air quality, ecology and biodiversity, heritage and archaeology, and any relevant planning obligations. So as members are likely to appreciate, the site forms part of the allocated residential site HSG5 in the adopted borough plan. The proposal is for 455 dwellings, which is over the 398 minimum for the allocation set out in the plan. This proposal also includes 55 over 55 assisted care units. The layout we see here is purely indicative, as layout is a reserved matter, but this master plan shows how the site could accommodate the proposal. The site intends to provide 25% affordable housing, which is compliant with policy H2 in the borough plan. The provision of houses capable of housing an ageing population is also welcomed. Since the layout is a reserved matter until later, the exact layout and mix of affordable units has not been set and will form part of the reserved matters submission. In regard to the impact on visual amenity, an LVIA was submitted with the scheme. It makes some recommendations over the retention of some landscape features. These echoed some recommendations from the concept plans for the HSG5 allocation. Overall, it is considered that there will be no obvious and inevitable there will be an obvious and inevitable impact on the landscape character when this allocation is constructed. The benefits of the scheme and the mitigation to the impact on landscape all must form part of the planning balance. In regard to the impact on residential amenity, MBBC Environmental Health were consulted and had no objection in relation to noise and etc. With this application being outlined, we cannot assess distances or other impact on residential amenity at this stage, as layout is reserved for later. Although this is an outline application, access is being considered. There are 3 main vehicular accesses proposed following extensive modelling with and work with Warwickshire County Council highways and national highways, and they are both content with the scheme. The proposal accords with the infrastructure requirements of the adopted borough plan, and there are no objections from the 2 highway bodies. There are more than just residential units proposed on the site, and although mainly residential in use, there are some other uses proposed, and these include a district centre of 1.4 hectares, including E, F2 and F1 uses, and 8.9 hectares of open space. This is in accordance with the requirements of HSG5 and the concept plan. The site is in flood zone 1, which is at the lowest risk of flooding. In terms of surface water drainage, the development will continue to discharge surface water at the equivalent greenfield rate. Warwickshire County Council flood risk team have no objections to the application. In regard to contamination, Environmental Health have requested the standard contaminated land condition, and in regard to the impact on air quality, Environmental Health are also content with the conditions covering dust management, electronic vehicle charging points, and boiler specifications. An ecological assessment was submitted with the scheme, which identified habitat for great crested newts and bats, and suggests mitigation to help enhance the habitat. The applications had successfully shown a net gain in biodiversity on the site, which is obviously welcomed and is preferable to relying on any off-site mitigation. A total of 5 trees are to be removed. 1 of those is Category B, with 3 Category C trees and 1 Category U tree. In regard to heritage, a heritage assessment was submitted with the application. Following consultation with Warwickshire County Council Archaeology, they requested further work, and subsequently, following the submission of these further details and a programme of evaluative fieldwork, Warwickshire County Council have no objection to the scheme. As members will have seen from the agenda, there are many planning obligations which have been requested, and the majority agreed by the applicant. The agenda contains a comprehensive list of the requests and their figures, but these briefly comprise monies for play and open space, education, housing, the clinical care group, George Eliot Hospital, Warwickshire Police, Warwickshire County Council Infrastructure Team, and Warwickshire County Council Highways. The proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a legal agreement as set out on the agenda. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. We have several speakers on this item, so I'm going to start with the first, which is Imogen Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee, for your time this evening. Further to a meeting in 2022, the Hospital Lane Residents Committee elected me to represent the community on the issue of the proposed build of 455 houses on Hospital Lane. I speak for all the residents at that meeting, and Councillor Morton is able to vouch for that. The proposal is strongly opposed by those in the local area, proven by a petition which has been signed by 321 people. Before we commence the details of the various objections and concerns we have around this proposal, I would like firstly to draw your attention to the recent Supreme Court case in Shrewsbury and the landmark ruling in relation to the use of gifted land being sold for the purposes of building houses. We believe our scenario is the same, and this judgment has already been identified as having national implications for these situations. We ask you to bear this in mind when considering your decision. If necessary, and we hope it will not come to this, we would be prepared to consider legal action if needed. The proposed build site is on a narrow rural road, completely incapable of sustaining at least an additional 455 cars, if not more, and serves as walking routes for children attending local schools such as Newdigate Primary and Ash Green Senior School. To date, there has been one death and multiple accidents, even with the very small volume of traffic the road currently caters for. Anyone living locally to the area can vouch for that traffic which builds on Heath Road during rush hour and the delays experienced, fed by Goodges End Lane and Smorrel Lane. The additional vehicles will further increase this to the detriment of both local residents and children. During school run, the paths are already insufficient to safely provide routes for children who walk to school. If you haven't witnessed or experienced this before a decision is made, I strongly implore you to travel the route from Hospital Lane to Ash Green School at 8:30 a.m. in the morning or 3 p.m. to see how many children are already at risk with the volume of traffic of severe incidents. The fields are used by many local residents for the benefit of their mental health and well-being, exercise, dog walking, and whilst they are currently used for arable farming through custom and practice, we believe this space should be deemed green space. In only January this year, Rishi Sunak pledged that new buildings should only take place on, and I quote, brownfield, 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 and that every person should have access to green space within a 15-minute walk. The proposed plan going ahead would directly contravene the promises of the current Prime Minister. The new government has equally placed large emphasis on improving air quality. Again, these proposals completely contradict this. Whilst it is understood that the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust is selling these fields to continue being able to benefit local children, the plan proposals going ahead, we believe, will be detrimental to them. The local schools are predominantly full, with only very few spaces being available in some year groups, the senior school having recently received the lowest Ofsted rating of inadequate. In fact, only this term, they have had to increase the class sizes of Ash Green School due to their inability to retain or recruit teachers into that environment, meaning that the children at that school are already in class sizes of over 40 children in an inadequate school. Any more would completely overflow a school that cannot cope with what it is currently handling. It is almost guaranteed that with the proposed houses being built will come more children, requiring more school places and a quality education, which is already questionable. The proposal that Bluecoat School could accommodate some, we believe, is highly unlikely given the distance and strict entrance criteria being a faith school. I'll now hand over to Councillor Morton.
Thank you. I was just about to ask if you had much more to go.
All done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Morton, whenever you are ready, your 3 minutes starts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. I'm Councillor Graham Morton. I'm actually the Ward Councillor for this area, Bedworth Heath. Thanks for your time. We have timed it. It's about 3 minutes, 10 seconds, mine was. So can I just follow on, not repeat, follow on, please, from Imogen. First of all, thank you, everybody, for coming. It really means a lot. Okay, so despite the warm words in the report, the best intentions around walking and cycling, the traffic reports still state that 3/4 of all journeys from this site will be by way of car. This will be further exacerbated by the cancellation of bus route 55, which was mentioned in the travel plan. So 455 homes will inevitably mean 500 to 900 additional cars. Imogen explained the congestion issues. We already experienced them. We just can't imagine what will happen if this went ahead. So it's also almost impossible to obtain a doctor or a dentist appointment in this area of Bedworth. Almost impossible. Three weeks wait for a telephone appointment. That's what it's running at the moment. Okay. So there's no provision in the plan for additional medical services to be built, meaning that local and potential future residents of this estate and existing housing are going to have to suffer through their health. Okay. Environmentally, the loss of these fields will mean the loss of habitat for animals, which will be devastating, including bats, hawks, and likely, as stated, greater crested newts. Over 50 ponds in this area, apparently. The long-term environmental impact will be dreadful. These plans involve also the destruction of trees, and you'll have to forgive me because I thought it was 50. I may have misread. I don't want to confuse anyone, but I thought it was 50. Okay, well-established mature trees. And this land does flood. It's one of the things that all the people have explained right from day one. This land does flood. In its current guise, the fields provide an environmental benefit as it acts as a slow-release reservoir, reducing flood impact on our watercourses. The report acknowledges the flood risks and suggests it can be mitigated. However, it talks about sewer overflows that will require discussions with Severn Trent Water. I note that Severn Trent Water didn't even respond to any offer of consultation. Where's the guarantee that this will happen then? OK, we know that this country needs to retain arable farmland, and yet this plan is to remove land currently used for this very purpose. And finally, committee, I would like to ask that in addition to all of the above points, you remember that the original local plan passed by Labour, which gave this proposal the so-called green light, has actually been proven to be flawed. The number of dwellings required for Coventry overspill, the ONS data, was set at 38,000. In fact, this was an overestimate of almost a third. So these figures were used to set our local plan, so our NBBC continue to use a flawed plan in agreeing these items. With recent new estates being built on Wheelwright and Ash Green Lane, Astley Lane and Smarts Lane, we implore you to refuse this proposal, or at the very least postpone any decision until the plan is revised with correct numbers and your better judgment can be given to the points raised here today. Nearly finished, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to ask if you could just...
nearly finished. One more paragraph. This development is not needed. It will negatively impact existing communities and it will damage our environment. Please, we ask you to consider the legal implications which we've brought to your attention. We ask you to stand up for your local community, consider the quality of life, safety, educational, welfare and environmental impacts of this proposal, and for the good of all those living here, make the right choice for the people you serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morton. Okay, before I go to the agent, Mr. Pendle, I would like to ask if any members are after or require any points of clarification from either what Ms. Hughes or Councillor Morton has actually said. Councillor Cape.
I listened very carefully to what both people said and noted as they were going through what points they were raising. So I'm a little bit kind of confused because on one hand, the issue of education was raised and that there was lack of provision, and also the issue of medical services was raised and that there was lack of availability. However, when I looked through the 106, I saw that there was about 1.7 million for education and about 1.7 million for healthcare facilities. So are those funds that have been allocated to the 106 considered to be by the professional officers sufficient to meet the demand?
Yes, they're obviously the figures that have been requested by the consultees that were consulted on the application. So the health care providers themselves and the education providers, that is what they have requested, and the agent and the applicant have agreed to those sums.
Okay, does any of the members seek any points of clarification? Yes, sorry, Ms. Hughes.
Sorry, Chair, excuse me. Having read through the documents that I've seen this evening, it is noted that there was no notification to Warwickshire County Council Education of this proposal. Therefore, there hasn't been the opportunity for them to raise any concerns over the proposed building of these houses. And equally, the senior school doesn't sit under Warwickshire County Council, but it would be the senior school that is the captive area for this building. So equally, Coventry haven't been consulted on whether they would be able to sustain this number of students into the local schools. Because where the development is proposed to sit, sits right on the very boundary of Coventry. So, for example, as a parent myself, my child has attended school in Bedworth, but the senior school is in Coventry.
If I could just come in there, I mean, obviously we don't have that breakdown in front of us. What we get is we get one figure presented to us, which sort of is an all-encompassing figure. So we have to sort of take it on very good faith. You know, I mean, it's there in black and white for us, and if it comes out at a later date, that, you know, if it was to go forward, then obviously that's something that we could challenge if it didn't come forward. But we don't know, sitting around this table, how that money has been broken down. What we do know is that, you know, all the statutory consultees and all the consultees that need to be consulted on this have been, and those figures have been derived in consultation with them. So I'm afraid we have to take what we have there, unless you can prove overwhelming evidence, you know, whip out a couple of head teachers with you that perhaps have been in those conversations, then maybe that would be something slightly different. But we have to just take it as it is, I'm afraid. So sorry about that. Okay, any other points? Yes, Councillor Green.
Yes, Chair. Can I just ask the local experts? I believe this land was sold by or up for sale by the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust. And am I right in saying it's being sold so the money can go and support the people of Bedworth?
You're correct. It is owned by the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust. There was no consultation, as it was left for the good of the people, the local people, as to whether or not it should be sold and whether it was in the best interest. Whilst there is acknowledgement of the good work that the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust carry out and the funds that they provide to local schools in Bedworth and to children to provide them with grants and support, it is our overriding belief that whilst, yes, this funding would continue that, the impact on the other elements, if I've already stated, we believe would actually overall have a bigger detrimental impact on those individuals.
Am I right in saying that you believe that it's not in the best interest of the people of Bedworth that Nicholas Chamberlain should be selling this land in the first place?
Yes, that's correct. And equally with the court case that was landmark in Shrewsbury, it was exactly the same situation and that was overturned. Thank you.
I think we've got to be careful with our line of question. All we are doing here is we're looking for those clarifications. We can't anticipate what the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust may or may not be doing because we haven't got them here in front of us tonight. And I think we've got to err, as chair, I think I've got to err on the side of caution here. And I've got to sort of say we've got to be very careful about dealing with what we've got in front of us. You know, if someone like the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust felt that strongly, then, you know, they should have really been here tonight. They should have been contacted beforehand so they could perhaps, you know, put that in. But really, that's a kind of almost a side issue to what we've got here tonight. So I think we've got to be very careful, as often we do with these applications, in terms of what we do and don't consider. And I think the line of questioning, Councillor, as well, we've got to kind of think of, because this is for clarification on what has been said by the speaker. So, you know, we can't really sort of go down that line because we haven't got the other side to sort of, you know, give their side of the argument, really, in terms of Nicholas Chamberlain Trust. So are there any other points of clarification that anyone is seeking? No, in that case, I will go to Mr. Pendle then. So you'll have your 3 minutes when you're ready, Mr. Pendle.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members and officers. My name is David Pendle from Marrons, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Richborough Estates and the Nicholas Chamberlain School Foundation Trust. As you consider this Hospital Lane application in front of you tonight, there are members of Richborough Estates and the the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust in the audience as well, taking a keen interest in the discussion and no doubt thinking about what's just been talked about. I've got a speech for you which will take a little under 3 minutes, but I will just very quickly make mention of the Shrewsbury judgment that was just talked about. And I should say Marrons is part of a law firm, so things that we take keen interest in. The Shrewsbury case was solely related to the use of local land for recreation by local residents, and a covenant that prevented its use for any other action. What we've got here is land that is in the ownership of the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust for their best use to deliver the Trust's school foundation activities and vision. And I would put it to you that should the Trust determine that the best use of that land is to sell it for as an asset for any profit, as long as they recycle the profits that they make into their vision, they're perfectly entitled to do that. So I just make that point very, very briefly. You've got a very good office report in front of you. Mr. Grant's just run through that, done a very, very good job of taking you through the individual items in there. I won't take your time up repeating it. I don't think that's necessary. For obvious reasons, you'll understand that we're delighted it recommends approval, and we agree with that. We've worked hard to develop a proposal that delivers the allocation from the adopted development plan, plan-led development being, the key component of the national planning system. And we wanted to do that in a way which delivered the requirements of the local plan policy HSG5, that again has been made reference to in the committee report and in the presentation tonight, and takes a lead from the concept master plan SPD. In doing so, we've taken a comprehensive constraints-led approach, working closely with officers in development management, policy and parks, to arrive at a layout that is backed up by technical appraisals that satisfy all technical consultees. It's very often the case I find myself listening to speakers like Miss Hughes and Councillor Morton, and I have a lot of sympathy with that. Of course I do. But it is the fact that we've got a clean bill of health on the application that you can see in front of you, and statutory consultees have indeed either found need for conditions or said no objection. Mr. Grant again referred to Section 106 agreements. I think I'm right in saying he said that the majority of them are agreed to. They're all agreed to, either as specific amounts or agreement in principle to pay the specific amount once we know what that is. We think we've arrived at a framework for reserve matters application that will deliver a place that everyone can be proud of. Now, in doing that, I've mentioned the Trust. The Trust have played an important role in that process. We've had conversations with them about the Coming Home report that the Commission for the Archbishops of Canterbury and York have delivered, which sits well with delivering sustainable development in the Buildings for Life process. The homes, including market affordable and special accommodation for the elderly, will sit alongside a new district centre, which will provide for the day-to-day needs of new and adjacent community. It'll include things like schools and shops, and also space for a GP surgery, so the CCG want it. Around 9 hectares of green infrastructure, including allotments, play areas, and a wildlife area for Newdigate Primary School. Mention was made of ecology and biodiversity net gain. The proposals deliver a net gain. As hard as that is to comprehend, the site has more ecology after it's developed than it does now. We've also agreed, as has been mentioned, this comprehensive package of planning obligations. I'd just like to touch on that very, very quickly. Almost £950,000 for parks, £1.1 million for sports development. Warwickshire County Councillors, the LEA, have been consulted. We've had quite long and detailed discussions with them. £1.6 million for education. A huge sum of money to deliver education improvement places for local people. 25% affordable housing. As alongside the land for the GP surgery, almost 1.4 million for health, which again is not insubstantial sum of money.
I appreciate I am trying to be fair because I did allow the other two speakers to go over, but they only went over by 20, 30 seconds. So if you wouldn't mind,
of course,
summarising the key points that you want to get over.
Happy to, Chair, and apologies. Richborough Estates have a strong track record in delivering excellent developments, and I hope some of what I've said shows you how seriously we've taken that. And you've got the report in front of you, which shows the illustrative master plan that will provide that framework for reserve matters. 455 homes, good contribution towards 5-year land supply, which I know is something that you're all keen to look at. We'd be delighted if you'd accept the recommendation from officers. So thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to run over.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Pendle. So can I ask us all, does anyone have any points of clarification they'd like to raise with Mr. Pendle, anything that he has said? Yeah, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. You've mentioned the highways, which is obviously the only thing we're looking at this evening. And on some of your 106 agreements, it's saying to be confirmed around cycleways, around proposed cycle routes towards Bedworth Town Centre, etc. So have they been agreed now, or are you haven't agreed them as yet? Because there's big sums of money in there that if you haven't agreed and they're not going to go ahead, there's a bit of an issue.
Yep, thank you for that question. I did cut my speech a little short. I was going to make mention of the highways improvements. I wasn't going to go through them line by line. We're talking walking, cycling, public transport, and then car movements. reference was made to 25% of trips being by car. That's actually a lot. When you break down modal shift, 25% is a big sum, and part of the reason for that's the district centre. The way the district centre works and the way the site is keyed into the surrounding area is to do with not only the bus routes, that 830,000 pounds, but also the network of cycleways and pedestrian links. So I made reference to the comment, a majority of 106 contributions have been agreed. They're all agreed. Where we know sums of money, they can be put into the 106 and they can be delivered. Where it's delivery of an objective like a cycle way or a pedestrian link, they're in the master plan and we've said that we will deliver them. Obviously the cost, so let's take for example the ones inside the site would be part of normal developer costs when they're delivering the actual development themselves. There are one or two connections into the adjoining residential area and along the frontage of Hospital Lane where clearly there'd need to be a conversation with the County Council's Highways Authority about how they would work, but we've agreed the principle of those, so we fully expect to deliver them. So where you see an item there and it says amount to be confirmed, it will either be dealt with through the usual site delivery mechanism because it needs to be built to serve a house or serve an adjacent link into an adjacent community area, or the County Council will require us to make an extra contribution and deliver it off-site, and we're comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Shepherd, does that answer your question? Do I have any other points of clarification if anyone has? Councillor Cape.
On page 71, it talks about the tree loss and that matters will be dealt with at future reserved. So I'm taking advice from the officers here now. That was an issue for me that I would like to see wherever possible them retained if they're mature in the design. And if they have to be replanted, is it at that later stage that we can say that as a condition they should be mature and not saplings?
Thanks, Councillor. There is a condition on this outline for a planting scheme, so it would be through the discharge of conditions that process would take place. And our parks team are pretty good on these things, and they would push for as mature specimens as possible. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor Cape, is okay? Yeah. Do I have any other points for clarification? Okay, so we've heard from our speakers. So in front of us, we've got a recommendation to grant planning permission subject to the agreements and conditions as printed. So to enable us to now discuss the matter, I need a proposer and a seconder. So do I have a proposer? So Councillor Cape, okay, if you're happy to propose, and do I have a seconder? And Councillor Smith, thank you. Okay, so do I have any members who wish to talk on this matter? Councillor Markham.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know it hasn't been, shall we say, highways have agreed to it, which I'm quite surprised at, to be fair. I know I live around the area, and Smorrel Lane, Goodies End and Heath Lane are always now, without this development, full of traffic, and it's very difficult to get around. I note that in the actual monies that are proposed from the section 106, there is a section there which says that the road's going to go down to 50 mile an hour, junction improvements to the M6, but is the road going to be widened? It doesn't mention anything about that. I don't know what that is, if that's going to happen. But there's another one here that says about the cycleway and footway, section 278 works to Goodies End Lane. Can you tell me what section 278 works is? Is it part and parcel of the actual footway and cycleway, or is it an improvement or a widening of the road, please?
Section 278 works are where the developer would do works on the highway to the highway specification for later adoption. I don't believe there's a plan to widen the road in this case. The highways are happy with the access, which is what we're looking at here. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments you'd like to make, Councillor Markham? No. Okay, so my next speaker is Councillor Hammersley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I would like to ask National Highways and Warwick County Highways some questions, but there's no one here. But I have great reservations about the increase in traffic because I am a local as well. I know traffic queues from Bedworth Town Centre to beyond Smorrel Lane at peak times. It is already overcrowded and bursting at the seams with traffic now. So with the possibility of 455 plus, I'm not saying every house will be coming up Heath Road, but I question highways, how they have arrived at these roads will be suitable for this extra traffic. But again, they're not here. I can't question them face to face. So I would like to know when the surveys were done, how the surveys were carried out, and the results of the figures which were carried out. Because I live there. I cannot get off my drive and turn right to go to the town. Locals will know that traffic queues even back to the co-op, which was the old Crosskeys pub. It's a nightmare already. If there was access onto the treble 4 at that point, which there's not, to go towards Nuneaton, it would relieve it, but there's not. We have to live with what we have. And at this moment in time, it can't cope. It can't cope. If you were a local resident, you would know it can't cope. So this extra trap, we all know we need extra housing, etc., etc. And these people in the gallery can't just say, yes, but not in my backyard, which we as on the committee cannot just accept. We want them, but not in our backyard. Unfortunately, we have to take an overview of what's needed and if it's possible and where it is. So my only reservations is traffic in the area, which is only my opinion, we can't cope with already. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hammers. I don't know whether any officers want to come back on any of the points that have been made.
Just obviously to say, as when this site was allocated in the existing local plan, obviously it had to go through quite a rigorous exercise at that point, which included at that point, and I appreciate it was only at that point, a strategic transport assessment. Obviously, as part of this application, that work has been developed further. The difficulty we have, as we know we've been in this position before, Councillor, is we have got our expert consultees with no objection. So if we were to move forward and refuse on highways grounds, the difficulty we've got is that it is an evidence-based planning system. At the moment, we've got evidence from the applicant, we've got evidence from our highways consultee to basically say that they have no objection and it can work. I have got no other evidence other than, unfortunately, opinion, and I totally appreciate what you're saying, for us to go down another route. And I think if we were to refuse on highways grounds, and obviously it would be likely that the applicant would appeal, then we would have to look very carefully at how we were going to defend that decision, because of course our highways authority couldn't defend that decision because they've already said they have got no objection. So we would have to look at getting our own evidence to support that.
Okay, Councillor Hammers, you had the follow-up question.
Yes, could you tell me then when these surveys were carried out?
Without me going through it, and I would need time to go through the whole transport assessment because it will be there in the information that was submitted, but obviously we send that through to our county council colleagues to look at in detail because I'm not an expert, but it will be there in the information in terms of when they were undertaken. I don't know if the agent can help at all. Sorry, I might be putting him on the spot because I know he won't be a transport consultant either.
I'm happy to try and help, but yeah, I can't give a definitive answer. There's been a huge discussion around COVID about pre-COVID transport levels and post-COVID transport levels. And the general rule of thumb is to take the worst case scenario. We were asked to do additional survey work and modelling with the County Council as we worked our way through this application. You know, it's been in for some time having those types of discussions. The County Council ultimately, as the local highways authority, have taken a view based on evidence has been mentioned that at the I think it's the 2031 scenario, the development is mitigated. In other words, the development traffic has been dealt with mitigated to a satisfactory level, and that's their test for saying that there isn't an issue with it.
Yes, Councillor Hammersley.
Well, thank you for that explanation, but it was not an explanation for me anyway, and I don't think for these people. I don't feel comfortable when this decision was made, and I don't feel comfortable with that we cannot question or look at the moment how this decision was made, how the figures were arrived at, who said the roads could cope, etc., etc. There is nothing in black and white here tonight to appease me or these other people behind me, which says these roads can cope. I question it, and I have great reservations with the decision that has been made in the past, but we don't know how far in the past this decision was made. It's a decision's been made sometime last year, 10 years ago, or whatever. But being a local, it's something does not add up. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Hammersley. I mean, I appreciate it is a difficult one. We're often asked to take a lot on faith, aren't we? Particularly from Warwickshire County Council's Highways Department. I think we've been down this road many times before. But excuse the pun. But we really have, and we often have to take what they provide us with. But I appreciate where we've got something as large as this. Obviously, it would be really great to have somebody from Warwickshire Highways or County Council to represent and to be able to sort of perhaps answer your concerns and questions, and we'll maybe sort of revisit that if depending on what the Applications Committee sort of thinks tonight. I want to go to our next speaker now, and that's Councillor Wilson, who's been waiting quite patiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll begin by saying I have a great deal of sympathy with the residents. Those of you who know my history, I fought for 10 years against the Golf Drive development, ever since I was first elected until it was passed just before the change in administration in 2021. So I suspect what I'm about to say will upset a number of the residents in the gallery, and I apologise for that, but what I say with the scars on my back, Chair, for having fought those campaigns. The damage was done in 2019 when the borough plan was approved by the previous council. The inspector has ruled, rightly or wrongly, whether we like it or not, that there is a presumption in favour of development of this site. And it will have been examined. Every single one of the housing allocation sites had at least half a day from memory allocated to the inspection before the inspector. Some had even longer. Before that, because some of them were slightly more complicated. But he said, in principle, this site, if it wasn't, I can't remember if it was Greenbelt before, but if it was deallocated. We cannot put it back into the Greenbelt. It will no longer meet the Greenbelt tests as set out in the National Planning Policy Framework. And he has, as I have already said, put the presumption in favour of that. Now, Councillor Morton quite rightly mentions the dodgy figures from Coventry, which were highlighted by a number of us at the time, that we had great question marks over the actual number of houses required from Coventry and the overspill. Unfortunately, I think it was the National Statistics Authority or something along that name, didn't make their ruling on the statistics used by Coventry City Council until after our local plan was approved. Therefore, our local plan is binding until such time as a review has taken place and it has been changed in some way, shape or form. Now, whilst we have been going great guns on that, it isn't yet in a position to be able to do that because we need all the other evidence bases, etc., that go with it. The only thing that we could consider, as I understand it at this point, is whether the accesses themselves, because it's an outline planning application only, whether the accesses themselves are suitable for the site. There is nothing before me that would hold any water at an inspection, at appeal, to say that they don't. There is no professional evidence to say that. If we were to refuse this, as it stands, I would suspect the applicant would appeal, and they would have, I would suspect, a very, very good case at appeal before the inspector, and we would be looking at least at six-figure sums in terms of compensation, in terms of legal costs. Because I know that our legal department have had to look at a number of these over the years, and we almost always have to pay the costs if we lose. We never ever get the costs if we win, actually. We never get them if we win, but we only ever seem to pay them out if we lose. And they are usually at least six-figure sums on sites such as this. And that is money which we need to support our existing services, Chair. What I am pleased about, whilst it's only indicative, is that actually the applicant has gone and done some homework. There is a local development, shopping centre planned. If you look along St Nicholas and Weddington, with all the piecemeal development of some 6,000 houses, until you get Top Farm, there is not one local shopping centre to service all those houses. We have one here. We actually have money going towards secondary school provision, special educational needs and post-16. We have a land allocation for healthcare provision or money towards expanding existing provision. Not a lot of other sites have had that wherever else they've been introduced across the borough. And actually, there's almost there's a significant amount of money, over 1 million I think it is, towards play and open space and play provision, etc. A lot of that money will actually be needed to fund the new leisure centre in Bedworth. I think almost every single resident in Bedworth understands that the existing leisure centre, if it is not already on its last legs, it is almost on its knees because it is so old and is in desperate need of a rebuild. And that money has to come from somewhere, Chair. If we want a swimming pool with all the other mod cons that go with it, that has to be funded from somewhere. And so I am pleased that that 106 provision is actually staying within the Bedworth town. I understand that there is this argument about the Nicholas Chamberlain Trust, and I say with all respect to anyone who wants to enter into that debate, that is not a matter for the planning committee. That is a private law issue between whoever wishes to take on the charity itself. I, in theory, Chair, could put a planning application on your property and it would be approved. Doesn't mean to say I can build it. That's a separate issue. So we have to stay away from that. So with a heavy heart, I will have to vote for this, Chair, because I feel that my hands are tied by previous actions of this council. And I'm sorry that that is the situation, but I also cannot jeopardise potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds in what would be a fool's errand if we were to try and take it to appeal, Chair. So I know what I've said will probably be unpopular, but I say so with the scars on my back and in all honesty, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I appreciate you have spoken from the heart, and I know it's a difficult decision for everyone that has to make these decisions because a lot of us, we're all local to the area, and we are impacted as well more often than not. And sometimes you can't do right for doing wrong, can you? That's part of what we're doing here in planning. We're trying to sort of get the best overall outcomes. Do I have any other speakers on this matter? Does anybody else wish to say anything at all? No. Okay, in that case, we'll go to the vote. Okay, so all those in favour of a recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to agreement and conditions as printed. Okay. Against? And abstentions? Okay, so I make it that has been approved. Okay, obviously there will be, to let residents know, that this is just the first part of it. There will be other stages that will come forward. This is just agreeing the sort of principle almost of it. So there will be other instances where, you know, other issues will be on the table to discuss, but that won't be for tonight. So I thank you all for coming. So anyone that does want to leave, you're free to do so now, and we will pause the meeting to allow people to do that. Okay, ladies and gents, if I could please ask you to start taking your seats so we can begin this item. Thank you. Once again, for the sake of residents who are watching this at home on the video live stream, the reason we've had a pause is to allow the residents who attended the previous item on Hospital Lane to leave, and to allow the residents who are here for the Crows Hill application to file into the public gallery. So I apologise for the slight delay. I think we've got pretty much everybody seated now, so I shall ask Darren to begin his presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just wait for the system to catch up. Oh. Oh, God. Okay.
Sorry, one second, please. Councillor Shires.
Just to say, one of the residents did come up to say hello to me, but we didn't discuss the application. No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. This is a full planning application for the erection of a single-storey shop, which is intended to be an E-use class, to be sited upon part of the existing car park belonging to the Crow's Nest pub in Nuneaton. The scheme also proposes alterations to the existing site access and parking arrangements for the pub, along with a built-in ATM machine and cycle stands. The Crow's Nest pub sits on the corner of Crow Hill Road and Eastborough Way, with vehicular access from Raven Way. Raven Way leads through into a precinct of shops and commercial premises. The units are mostly E-use classes, with the exception of a nursery and hot food takeaway. The pub, the existing premises on Raven Way and the application site are all within a designated local centre known as Crow Hill Local Centre, within policy TC3 of the Borough Plan. The key issues to assess are the principle of the development, impact on the town centre, impact on Crow Hill Local Centre, residential amenity, visual amenity, impact on trees, impact on highway safety, flooding and drainage. In regard to the principle of the development, as members will know, the site is within Nuneaton, which has a primary role for employment, housing, town centres, leisure and service provision. The site is also within a designated local centre, as already mentioned. It is considered, therefore, that the principle of an EU shop in this location is acceptable. The site is not within the town centre, but it is within Crow Hill designated local centre. Regard needs to be had to the impact of any out-of-town centre proposals for this type of main town centre use. The NPPF gives guidance on when a sequential test is necessary. In this case, it is considered that the proposal is small-scale retail serving a more local need, so it is not a direct rival to the town centre in the hierarchy of centres. NBBC policy have confirmed that small-scale convenience shops provide a tiny percentage of Nuneaton's food and grocery market, actually just over 0.0%. Given the very low percentage of overall share of food and grocery shopping, the proposal is unlikely to impact the existing stores within the town centre. The Borough Plan Policy TC3 is relevant, which states that the development in a local centre will be acceptable under certain circumstances. This additional E-use will help to buoy the vitality and viability of the existing centre by adding consumer choice. Many of the objections related to competition from the new use towards existing uses. However, this is not a material planning consideration. In regard to residential amenity, distance standards in the adopted guidance are met to surrounding occupiers in terms of light and privacy. A noise report was submitted with the scheme, and Environmental Health are content with this and have no objections subject to a condition limiting deliveries to between 7 AM and 6 PM. It is therefore considered that there would be no unacceptable harm to residential amenity as a result of the scheme. The proposed store would not be visible from Eastborough Way, given the screening on site, mainly from the existing pub. There will be views of the store within Raven Way and Crow Hill Road, though. The unit is to be single-storey with a flat roof and is to be finished in a mixture of plain and textured brick and sections of cladding. It is considered that the design is not incongruous or prominent. In regard to the impact on trees, there are no trees covered by tree preservation orders on site. Some existing trees on site are to be removed, all of which are Category C trees, and the NBBC tree officer has been consulted and is content with the revised tree removal plan. In regard to the impact on highway safety, a parking survey was submitted with the scheme. In order to accord with NBBC's current parking standards, the proposed 400 square metre store would be required to provide 16 parking spaces. Only 14 parking spaces are proposed specifically for the store. However, it is noted that the public house car park nearby would be shared informally with the store, and that the additional 2 parking spaces, if required, could be accommodated within the additional spare capacity of the larger public house car park, as outlined within the parking survey. The County Council Highways Authority are content with that. Access drawings have been through a Stage 1 road safety audit, and Warwickshire County Council Highways have no objections subject to conditions. The County Council have requested a formal pedestrian crossing with tactile paving across Raven Way and on both sides of the entrance off Raven Way. The exact placement of this is to be agreed. In regard to flooding and the impact on drainage, the site is within flood zone 1, meaning it is at the very lowest risk of flooding. The Environment Agency flood maps show it is at very low risk of flooding from surface water. The applicant is proposing to dispose of surface water via the main sewer. Overall, the drainage and flood risk implications of the proposal are acceptable. The proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions as set out on the agenda. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Darren, for your presentation. I now have a number of speakers on this matter, so I will start with the first speaker, which is in objection. That first two are in objection, and that's Liral Mudwadia. Apologies if I got that wrong. Okay, so you have 3 minutes when you're ready. If you just press the large button.
Right, I strongly oppose this application on several points. The Raven Way crossing. In regards to the condition made by WCC to have a crossing put on Raven Way, no clarification in regards to the crossing point has yet been made. Stage 1 of the road safety audit and Warwickshire County Council have raised concerns on the current crossing plans. As it stands, there are no answers to who the verge belongs to. If this can't be used for a crossing, highways have said that a suitable location can be agreed. Where would this be? When will we know this? Will any conditions be made? Is the Raven Way Road wide enough for a formal pedestrian crossing? Can a crossing safely be implemented without causing further problems in the future? The new development of traffic lights being put on Eastborough Way, we believe that turning right onto Crow Hill Road from Raven Way will cause more traffic and backlog further into both car parks, more so when delivery wagons are involved. In terms of the delivery management, with the new development, it is said that deliveries will be turned away if they clash with the pub deliveries. Will this be a condition from the planning committee? Has anybody got time to monitor this? Does anybody have the time to monitor every delivery that will take place? Is Raven Way sufficient enough to have 2 HGV vehicles coming in and out side by side when deliveries approach? What if there was a delivery for the current cost cutter, the butchers, the other premises that are on the location? What will happen? How will this be handled? Will we turn away our deliveries? No, we won't. Would you expect others to turn away their deliveries? They won't either. Will their deliveries accommodate the wagons for turning into the new road? So will Raven Way have enough space for both the wagons to turn in and out at the same time? In terms of the sustainability, we appreciate that competition is not a decision for the planning committee. However, sustainability is. We believe as a Crow Hill community that the further more of the same business type will reduce sustainability of the existing businesses in the current area. The borough plan is to work together to develop the area in a way that would not cause harm or detriment to the existing businesses or jobs in the area. If the new site was to go up, how many local residents will they actually employ? I urge the planning department and the committee to visit the site with first-hand experience in order for the road safety issues to be justified. This proposal should be objected due to the road safety issues concerning Raven Way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll now ask, do any members have any points of clarification which they would like to ask Ms Mudwadia? No? Okay. So I will move on then to our next speaker, and that is Councillor Tony Cooper, who's also, I believe, speaking not as the borough, the ward councillor, but as a sort of a private citizen.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so when you're ready then, Councillor.
Right. I strongly oppose this application on several points. The first is the junction of Crow Hill Road, Raven Way and Chatsworth Drive, which at times become very congested. This development will only make it worse. There is a children's nursery in the complex. Parking is limited as it is. The loss of a third of the public house car park and the addition of delivery vehicles will make the dropping off and picking up of children more hazardous. Can I just say, apart from that, I'm a local in the area and I know just how bad it can be. Congestion, parking, it's very difficult now. So with the addition of another unit on the pub car park, it's going to make it even worse and probably dangerous. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cooper. Can I ask, do any members have any points of clarification they would like to ask from Councillor Cooper? No? Okay, so we'll move on then to Councillor Guttridge, who is speaking in his capacity as the ward councillor. Councillor Guttridge, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Committee, officers. As ward councillor and a resident of Whitestone, I am against this application. Why do we need another shop with an ATM machine in a pub car park? We already have there, just behind them, a fish and chip shop, a butcher's, a very good convenience store, a hairdresser's, a chemist, a nursery, a beautician's coffee shop, and also we have a children's park just about 150 yards from there. So we don't need another shop. You only have to look along Crow Hill Road. Crow Hill Road has got traffic calming, chicanes and humps, and then we expect it to turn into Raven Way. I would like also to draw the attention of the Planning Committee to policy TC3 on page 91. It says the function, vitality and viability. We're viable. We've got a shop there already, a parade of shops, more than St Nicholas have. Contributes positively to a range of services on offer. We've got the services there. We have a chip shop, a butcher's, a very good convenience store. It does not harm the amenities of local traffic, local residents. Parking will be horrendous. I see that when they propose this overdevelopment in a pub car park, there's going to be 16 spaces and 4 cycle racks. 4 cycle racks. Not enough. Also, the motorbikes have got to share the parking bays. And what about people like me with limited ability? 1 disabled parking spot. We've got 2 behind in the Ravenwood parking. So I ask the residents, therefore, with my concerns, I ask the I ask the Planning Committee, before any decision is made, can we have a site visit to assess this proposed overdevelopment in a pub car park? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge. Do any members wish to seek any points of clarification on anything that was said? Okay, we'll start Councillor Cape and then we'll go to you, Councillor Hamsley.
It was just a point that was raised by Councillor Guttridge about the disability access. I mean, my mother is, in fact, disabled as well, so I'm aware of the importance of it. And I was going to ask the question about conditioning anyway, because it does seem slightly worrying that they're saying that due to the time of deliveries, that blue badge spot will not be available. Somebody travelling there is not going to know that a delivery is turning up, so you've got the potential for a disabled person turning up in their vehicle and having no place to park. And if it does go ahead, I think it should be conditioned that that blue badge parking space has got to stay. There has to be a disabled access spot there.
Thank you, Councillor Cape. Councillor Hammersley. I'm not sure that was actually a clarification. I think it was one of your little kind of speeches, wasn't it, really? Councillor Hammersley.
Just a question, if it could be answered, please. What is the width of the of that particular road? Do we know?
Is that Raven Way that you're referring
Raven
to?
Way,
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, I could measure it on this plan. To be honest, I don't know how reliable that is because it's not a highway engineering plan. So it would be a best guess, but I can do that if you give me a few minutes. Bear with.
I think if you're going to measure it, because it's kind of got like an S bend, hasn't it? It's got quite a sharp turn in it, Raven Way. Yeah. So you might have to look, because it might be narrower at certain points than others. So it's, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us know it, because a lot of us probably use the shops there anyway. Because we did have prior to the meeting, we did have a lot of declarations of, and people mentioning that, the council mentioned they did go there. So I think some of us are fairly familiar with it. But it's, yeah, if you could try and locate it at its narrowest point, Darren, which is probably on the bend, I would suggest. Okay, Councillor, does that answer your question? Okay, do you have... Right, not for this, okay, point. Do I have any other points of clarification that anyone would like to make? Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands, so in that case, I will move to our next speaker, which is the agent, which is Mr. Edge. So, Mr. Edge, you have your 3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members. My name is Chris Edge, and I'm a planning consultant for Pegasus Planning Group, speaking on behalf of the applicant, SEP Properties. SEP are a developer that has worked with a number of retailers to bring forward new convenience stores across the country. The application site is located within the defined local centre of Crow Hill, and the relevant local plan policy confirms that within local centres, retail development is acceptable in principle subject to certain criteria. Your officer has addressed these criteria in the report and considered that the proposed development is acceptable and does not conflict with the local plan policy. This includes an assessment of the size of the convenience store, as well as addressing the matters of need, impact, and the sequential test. In short, our assessment aligns with your officer in that the proposed development would increase the choice of shops and services for local residents within the local centre, which is where planning policy dictates that new shops should be located.
Sorry, can I just pause you there, please? Sorry, I would ask, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, I appreciate this is an emotive subject and obviously feel very strongly, but for consistency and fairness, could I please ask you to allow Mr. Edge to finish and inform the planning committee so that we can then base that, factor that into our decision-making process. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. The officer correctly points out that in these circumstances, competition and choice are not planning matters and cannot be a reason for refusal. Importantly, your officer also confirms that the new convenience store would make a valuable contribution to serving the day-to-day needs of new residents in the nearby housing developments at Sketchley Gardens and Golf Drive. As such, the principle of a new convenience store within Crow Hill Local Centre is policy compliant. In relation to design and other technical matters, we have been working with your officer to bring forward a well-designed and policy-compliant proposal over a period of 10 months. During this period, matters relating to trees and highways in particular have been addressed. Members will note that there are no outstanding objections from any statutory consultee subject to conditions which the applicant is happy to agree to. Trees that are to be retained will be protected by way of a condition requiring measures to be put in place during construction to protect the tree roots. Only a small number of poor quality trees will be removed which are not protected. On highways matters, the proposal will result in the loss of 12 parking spaces. A parking survey was undertaken and an assessment made of parking demand from the pub and proposed convenience store. The survey was undertaken over a 3-day period and will have picked up any shoppers parking in the pub car park. Taking into account the council's parking standards for both uses, in a worst case scenario and assuming the pub and convenience store peak periods coincide, all car parking will be accommodated within the car park whilst maintaining some spare capacity. The applicant is also committed by way of condition to provide improvements to the pedestrian crossing infrastructure between the site and surrounding area. The store cannot open without that. Hours of opening and deliveries will be secured by condition, and details of the proposed plant must be submitted prior to any plant being installed. This includes the requirement for a noise impact assessment too. All of this will control the impact on residential amenity. As a result, we respectfully request that members approve this planning application in line with Office's recommendations. In doing so, it will provide a modern convenience store for the benefit of existing and future local residents and to the benefit of the local centre as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Edge. Can I ask, do any members have any points of clarification? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that you'd done a car parking survey over 3 days. Could you tell us what period of time that was? What sort of days they were? Was it half term? Was it weekend? Was it midweek? Can you give us some context behind that, please?
Sorry, I think it's all in the officer's report, but I think it was Thursday, Friday and Saturday, full days. It wasn't during holiday times.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Do you have any other points of clarification? No? Okay, so we've heard from all of our speakers on this matter, so we've now got a recommendation before us, which is to recommend to grant planning permission subject to conditions as printed in your agendas tonight. I will now ask for a proposal and a second, and for members of the public, what that means is essentially that allows us to move to the debate. It doesn't mean that we've accepted it, but it means that we now get to debate it if it's proposed and seconded. So do I have a proposer? Okay, Councillor Shires, and a seconder? Okay, Councillor Smith. Okay, do I have any members who wish to speak on this matter? Okay, right, there's a bit of a list. So I'll start with you, Councillor Shepherd. If the rest of you just keep your hands up for a moment, I'll just jot them down. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've looked carefully at the plans. I don't consider that the Crow's Nest is part of the local centre. There's a clear divide by hedges and fencing, so I don't actually think it's in that local, counted in that local centre. Whilst looking at the comments and noting the comments from the officers in regard to viability, I don't think that it's been properly considered. This would have a considerable impact on the current centre that is already there. There's already an ATM there, so I don't understand why they put another ATM a short distance away. I'm surprised there's no objections from highways. Development's not been well designed. There's no plant details in the things. Refrigerated lorries, not before 8, say, county. But that's the time when most of the school children are going backwards and forwards there, so I would have thought that would be a real conflict. The road, certainly, in terms of 2 lorries coming in and out, I think would be quite interesting to see. I should imagine one of them's going to get stuck somewhere along there. We've got plenty of shops around the area. We've got Attleborough Green not very far away, and Hurston Grange that served the local communities and any new housing that will be coming along. So I'm surprised that, you know, that's being said. And there is 2 large supermarkets, both at Hurston Grange and at Attleborough Green. So I see no need for another one. I think it's a detriment to the residents in that area and to the businesses. So unfortunately, I won't be supporting the officer's recommendation at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Chair. I, like everyone here, knows the area really well and have gone shopping and made my way in and out of that car park very precariously. And my mum and my son have mobility needs, so of course disabled access and disabled spaces are very, very important. I don't understand why we need any more shops in the area. The area does already have all the shops, all the facilities it actually needs and that serve the community very well. Within a short distance of the Crow's Nest, you have the A5 Aldi, you've got the Co-op on Horston Grange, you've got the Lidl on Higham Lane, you've got the Aldi on Weddington Road, and then you can go into Attleborough, go to the shops town. So it's actually not needed. If there were no shops in that area, then potentially that would be a benefit to residents and sustainability of the area, but actually it's not needed. Also, as somebody who had a supermarket built behind the back of their house, when the lorries come in and go, it is actually very noisy. The amount of traffic they cause is as they're turning in is very difficult, and there was an awful lot of issues with regards turning at various angles and various things before actually anything could go in place, and I haven't seen anything of that in this, of any parts being sort of taken out so that they can go in a more of an angle. And as a local business owner, I actually feel for every single business, because there's nothing worse than actually sitting and looking, knowing that a big developer's coming in and your business is going to be going under, or potentially could go under because of that.
I think we've got to be careful there, Councillor.
I know on that
just
side,
because
that was
obviously
just
one
me.
of the things that we can't consider
Yes, I know, that was
is
just...
competition. So I appreciate speaking from the heart.
Yeah,
it
that
comes
that
across,
really
but
is.
I would
I
ask
know
you to
that
withdraw
is
that comment,
I think for everyone,
if possible.
But and apologies for that, Chair. But on another note, with regards highways, looking at traffic and looking at sizes of roads and whether there's going to be impact on access. As this keeps coming up regularly now at planning applications, where the committee are always asking questions and we're just having to rely on, yes, it is okay. Is it going to be possible for highways to actually attend some planning meetings to share with us their experience, their skills and their knowledge, so that actually we are able to make better informed decisions rather than just going on, well, a professional says. Thank you.
I think we can answer that in part. I know Maria and I, as head of planning, we've had sort of conversation about something we would like to see, and I think that's probably in line with members of the Planning Application Committee, because as we know, often we're asked to take things on faith, and sometimes you need to ask the questions behind the process, just to make sure that within your own mind what they're saying and what you're thinking are sort of marrying up. So I think it's something we're very keen to do, and I think we will do that. And it's a shame that we haven't got it for tonight, but I think as we move forward, that's something we'd like to certainly look into doing a lot more of. Do you have any further comments, Councillor Shires? No? Okay, so my next speaker then I have is Councillor Hartshorn.
Thank you, Chair. So, as I've mentioned before, as Planning Committee, I drive for a living. As we were doing when the applicant was, when the gentleman over there was making his part, I did do a quick measurement of Mr. Edge, yes. As Mr. Edge was doing his speaking, I did a quick Google Maps measurement of the width of Raven Way. It comes out to about 16 feet, give or take. My big vans are 8 feet wide. You would struggle to get two of them to go past each other, regardless of a lorry. Has a HGV access survey been done on the site? Because I think that most HGVs are quite a bit bigger than 8 feet wide. So I think that's my main concern with it, apart from, I know the material application, the things that I would feel motive about having an extra shop in that area, that can't be considered in this real way. But the access is my main question.
Yeah, a HGV survey is undertaken as part of the safety audit, the phase 1 safety audit. So as far as I'm aware, given that the County Council have said that they're happy with the phase 1 safety audit, that has been undertaken, Councillor.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to say, Councillor Hartshorn? Okay, in that case, I'll go to the next speaker, which is Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Before I actually go into my comments, can I ask a question or questions of the officers, please? The report and the presentation, when it came to highway safety, etc., focused an awful lot on car parking. I accept that is a very big issue to residents around there about the car parking spaces, but actually it was very silent on the actual highway network itself. What reports have come back from County Council about things like the number of vehicular movements going in and out of the site now that there would be this new shop in there? Because if you're going in there as a pub at the moment, you're likely to spend an hour or two there, so it'd be quite a long period of time, whereas if you've got someone going to a convenience store, they're going to want to pop in and out. So you're talking like a 10, 20 minute, 30 minute at the most, really, for that sort of area stay. So you're going to increase, I would have thought, the number of cars going in and out of that, combined with the fact that you're right next to a very, very busy junction, trying to get in and out. Never mind the fact that you're virtually opposite. I know it's offset, but when you get to the estate opposite on Crowhill Road, so what work has been done on the actual highway network impact? Thank you, Chair.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really provide answers for that. So I mean, what we could do is we could defer this matter and actually get somebody from the Highways Department of Warwickshire County Council to come in and answer these questions, because I'm kind of sensing, as I think Maria is as well, that there's a lot of issues around the sort of the highway issues in sort of like Raven Way in particular, probably, where we need to look at that, and we need to make sure that if we do grant permission, that it's been done properly and that we've done our due diligence process. So I mean, there is that option that we could, because I think we're going beyond that. So is that something you would like to propose, Councillor?
Yes, Chair, very much so. I would like to move a deferral so that we can actually have to have the highway impact assessment, the vehicular movements, all that stuff that goes on with it, and not just looking at that end, because don't forget, Crowhill Road itself is in a big sandwich between Lutterworth Road, which is the busiest road according to the borough plan, and Crowhill Road, which takes and Eastborough Way, which has an awful lot of development going on it, and's got a lot of scheduled mitigations going on. We need to see it all in the round, Chair, not just that little square, but how it impacts with Lutterworth Road and Eastborough Way and that network, because I know as a local resident and a local councillor that I can come out of Willowfields and be stuck up there for 20 minutes before I even get down to Eastborough Way, and that can be a good day that you're stuck for 20 minutes between Willowfields and Eastborough Way. And also, secondly, to have someone from Highways attend. Thank you, Chair. That's what I would move.
Yeah, thank you. I think I saw Councillor Smith raising his hand to second that proposal. Is that right, Councillor? Okay. So we do have that proposal on the table. Could I just, before we tackle that and go to that, Councillor Hammersley did indicate to speak, so I'd just like to hear, he was our last speaker, and I will come back to that. And Councillor Cape as well. Okay, so I'll listen to those last week, and then we'll come back to that, just in case they can enrich or add something else to the conversation. So.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Question is very similar to what's already been asked. Reference, one measurement at 16 feet, one measurement at 6.3, which is 20 odd feet. I, again, have reservations, and Highways, again, are not here. We can't ask them directly, with two-way lorries on that particular road. I've never been up that particular way. People are saying it's not wide enough, etc., etc. So, and I know from Warwick that work on Crowhill Road and the junction of Eastborough Way has been planned to alter that island. I know that. When it's going to be, I'm not sure when that is. Again, with the competition rules, I know I can't pass any comments on that. But it is this, can this road cope with two-way lorries? I assume it just about copes with cars, but I have my reservations with lorries, especially it's the open hours are from 7 till 11, and I'm sure there's going to be pub traffic maybe 10:30, 11 at night, and there may be lorries coming or whatever. So again, if this deferral period, which I do agree with, that those things can be checked with HGV vehicles coming and going, access instead of blocking. It's not just the HE, it's then emergency service vehicles, which may also need at the same time access to the site, and there may be an HGV lorry there at the same time. So again, has that been considered? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hammerson. I think again, you've raised some points that we've already raised, but I think, yeah, from a slightly different perspective, obviously looking at sort of emergency vehicles, which we haven't mentioned up until now. Councillor Cape.
Yeah, apologies for my little speech earlier when the bit about the blue badge should probably have come in at this time. So I'm still concerned about the disability parking that is there. The issues that Councillor Wilson raised about the focus on parking, it's a bit like apples and pears. I'd like to see more of a focus on the actual estimate of the turning circles and the width of them. And finally, the bit about no deliveries made between the hours of 7 a.m, which ties in with what Councillor Shears said. Personally, I think 7 a.m. is too early, because if you're saying that the shop cannot be delivered to until 7, as drivers will know, they'll actually be on the road well before 7 and will probably be impacting local residents from about 6:30 onwards to make that delivery slot. So I'm all for a deferral as well until such time as we can get some facts that will alleviate my concerns.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other speakers on this matter? I don't think we do have any. I would also sort of ask councillors how they feel, if they aren't familiar with this, would they also want to conduct a site visit? Because obviously we can do a site visit as well and go and have a look at the road network for ourselves. If some of you aren't familiar, I know a lot of us are in here very familiar with it, but if you aren't, you know, that's a possibility as well. So I don't know if there's anyone here who thinks they would like to do that. Okay, it's just seeing one. So possibly not then that much interested, so we won't go that. But I'll come back to the motion that we had, which was to propose a deferral, okay, until we can get somebody from Warwickshire County Council Highways Department to come in and speak to us and answer some of the questions we have regarding the highways issues and the disability parking issues that were raised this evening. So all those in favour of a deferral? Okay, so I think that's unanimous. So we will defer this over to hopefully our next meeting, when we'll be able to hopefully get somebody from Warwickshire County Council Highways Department in, and we will then resume this meeting there, where hopefully we can answer some of those questions and do our due diligence. So I apologise to members of the public that we haven't determined this fully tonight, but I think in the interest of doing this properly, I think it's the best decision as we move forward. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just to point on that deferral, would it be possible, I think officers have got a sense of everything we've discussed, would it be possible to brief the highways officers before they come, so they come equipped with the right answers? Yeah?
Yes, certainly, Councillor. We've obviously, between both of us, made some notes on the points you've raised.
Okay, so thank you. So we will defer that matter. You are free to leave, ladies and gentlemen, if you just come to listen to this matter, and hopefully we'll pick this up at the next planning meeting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, we've just, for members of the public who are listening in at home, we've just once again been clearing the gallery, so a lot of members, members of the public who turned up to the Crow's Nest hearing have now vacated the chamber. So we will now resume, and we're on to our last item of the evening, which is 2 Burbage's Lane, Longford. So I'll again ask Darren to do the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just wait for it to... Oh, it's caught up. This application is for the demolition of the existing dwelling and associated outbuildings and the erection of 8 new dwellings at 2 Burbage's Lane, Longford. The current dwelling at number 2 is a detached bungalow set within a large plot of land which is occupied by 2 ancillary single-storey outbuildings. The site was formerly covered by a Greenbelt designation before its removal from the Greenbelt with the adoption of the 2019 Borough Plan and the designation of the nearby non-strategic housing site. The development of the land to the north and east has been taking place over the last few years and has added to the residential character of this part of Wheelwright Lane and Burbage's Lane. The key issues to consider are the principle of the development, residential amenity, visual amenity, the impact on highway safety, flooding and drainage, waste and refuse, and ecology and biodiversity, and then we'll conclude. The site is not allocated within the adopted borough plan. It is next to a non-strategic site. Currently a single residential dwelling and its curtilage, and the site has no restrictions in the adopted plan and would constitute a windfall site. The proposal has been through several iterations, including reducing from 10 to 8 dwellings. There is a slight shortfall in terms of distance standards from plot 93 towards plot 45, and another on plot 90, which has a 20 centimetre shortfall to the side of plot 87. There is another slight shortfall from 87 to plot 2 on the already approved scheme nearby. Most distance standards are met though, and there is mitigation for these breaches where it is not. Environmental Health were consulted on noise grounds and have no objection to the scheme. The surrounding area is residential in character, and this proposal will add to that established character. The views of the houses from Burbage's Lane will be set against the backdrop of the other Bloor Homes dwellings constructed nearby. The construction materials are a mix of red bricks, and the tiles are either red or grey Russell Highland tiles. There is a narrow mix of styles and sizes and roof types, but the mixture isn't contrasting, and it is considered that the new units will all blend together and blend with the other nearby new dwellings. The parking provision is in accordance with the Parking Standards SPD. The plans were amended to take account of Highways comments, and subsequently Warwickshire County Council Highways have no objection to the proposal. Overall, there is considered to be no significant harm to highway safety as a result of the scheme. In regard to flooding and drainage, the site is within flood zone 1 and is therefore at the lowest risk of flooding. Severn Trent Water were consulted but made no response. There is considered to be no significant adverse impact on flooding, and in regard to waste and refuse, there are no specified bin collection points, but each dwelling has sufficient space within its curtilage to house and store bins. In regard to the impact on biodiversity and ecology, there are no trees on the site that are protected by a TPO. Arboricultural assessment was submitted with the scheme, and it identified only one Category A tree on site, which is to be retained. A landscaping plan was also submitted with the scheme, which identified a total of 14 new trees to be planted. In conclusion, there are no material considerations which weigh so heavily against the proposal that it should not be approved. Therefore, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions set out on the agenda. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. So on this, I do have 2 speakers on my list. One of those isn't here, but has sent a letter to all councillors. So hopefully you've received that electronically and have had a chance to study that. And then the other person I have speaking is the agent, which is Jenny Brader from Bloor Homes. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate you've been waiting a very long time to speak.
Fine,
so you can have your 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I'm Jenny. I'm the planning manager for Bloor Homes, and I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak. Bloor Homes is a well-established 5-star house builder and has got an excellent reputation for building high-quality homes. We are known to focus on the design, craftsmanship and fine details to ensure the highest quality is achieved. As a consequence, Bloor Homes has got the highest customer satisfaction rating compared to many of the other larger house builders operating in the UK. The site, as you've been advised by your planning officers is situated within the defined settlement boundary and seeks to make the most efficient use of land. The windfall sites such as this one are identified as accounting for at least 247 dwellings across the plan period and therefore make for an important contribution in helping to meet and maintain your 5-year housing land supply. During the course of the application, we have engaged with the planning officers to amend and reduce the original scheme from 10 to 8. 5 of the dwellings would be served via the new vertical access off Burbage's Lane, with the remaining 3 from Owen Road, both of which have received no objection for the Highway Authority. The scheme you see before you provides a high quality frontage which reflects the existing building lines present to the north and south, and the dwellings are limited to 2 stories in scale. They are also designed to reflect the characteristics of the wider street scenes. The dwellings include features such as bay windows, porch detailing and small ground floor projections, which all provide and add to the quality of built environment. All house types accord and exceed the national space standards, which also ensures that future occupiers are provided with good levels of living and storage needs. Externally, the layout has had full regard to the SPD to ensure that existing and future occupiers are provided with a good level of amenity, and habitable rooms are flooded with good levels of natural light. I hope members can appreciate that through working with your officers and professional staff, the detailed scheme before you has been carefully informed by the existing character and context of the surrounding area to ensure that the development creates an attractive, desirable and usable neighbourhoods for all. The application is recommended for approval by the case officer, and all the statutory consultees support the scheme subject to conditions. It is therefore hoped that members too will share this view in approving the scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask any members, does anyone have any points of clarification they would like to make? Okay, no. So we've got a recommendation to grant permission. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Wilson and Councillor Smith. Thank you. Okay, so I'll now open it to members for discussion. Councillor Cape.
Not sure if it's discussion or clarification. I always get confused. On page 114, it talks about is the site in same ownership and should the site be considered as a single development. Do Bloor Homes own the development that's already occurred to the right of the picture as I'm looking at, and should it be considered as a single development? And also on page 113 it says that the planning policy states that affordable housing should be focused on, i.e. 1 and 2 bedroom, and that this development actually is predominantly 4 bedroom. So it's for those reasons that I need some understanding as to the ownership and as to why there is no affordable housing on this plot.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, Bloor Homes are the house builder on the larger site. In essence, this is an application for 8 dwellings, and as such, in isolation, you can't ask for affordable housing on minor applications, so less than 10. There is a small caveat in the affordable housing policy, where it's to stop developers putting an application in, divided up into 10 small bits and saying, we're not doing 100 houses, we're doing 10 tens, or something like that, a really contrived way. It's considered by officers that this has just come forward at a later date because the person wanted to sell their house and their garden, and it's not actually a contrived way. So we think it's unfair in this case to make this development shoulder the burden of a 25% allocation across the entirety. So the larger site does have 25% affordable housing. This site's going to have just 8 market dwellings. We'll feel that's acceptable. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Darren. Does that answer your question, Councillor Cape?
It answers it, but I still feel slightly uncomfortable that it's still the same developer, and that in a spirit of morality, if you want to call it that, they could have provided another 2 smaller houses in that plot rather than going for the big house profit.
I think just to add, obviously, Councillor, there has been a lot of case law on this, and it is quite difficult to, unless it was in complete ownership of the same applicant at the time of the first application, then there are a lot of cases where there has been a successful defence that it isn't contrived. And I think in this instance, because at that point this house and these gardens weren't for sale, I think we'd been in a very difficult position to actually say it was one of the same development, unfortunately.
Okay, do you have any further questions, Councillor? Thank you. Do I have any other members who wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Shepherd.
It's in terms of conditions. Obviously, the dwelling is for demolition. I know we've been caught by this in terms of the development at Morrison's, in fact, that we didn't put something in there to say about the times they should be demolishing, and they've been in there on a Sunday. So I'd like something in there to say about demolition in terms of times they're allowed to go on the site, you know, that they can't be in there.
So that would be sort of like office hours, Monday to Friday.
Yes, Monday to Friday.
Or so it's usually, I think, a little bit earlier than office hours, but not a huge amount earlier. But yes, not at 6 a.m. on a Sunday kind of thing.
Yes, I'll be guided by the officers on the hours.
Yes, of course.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, if members were minded to approve the scheme, we could add a condition on asking for a demolition method statement, and that could be used to control the hours of demolition. As a fallback, there is obviously environmental health legislation about noisy works and so on. But yeah, thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So is that something you would like to put forward, Councillor Shepherd?
It is, Chair, and while I appreciate Darren's comment about environmental health, unfortunately, that sometimes is not available to us.
Yeah, okay, so if you're happy to propose the demolition schedule, the timings of that, do I have a seconder for that? So Councillor Shires. Okay, all those in favour of conditioning that, can I have a show of hands? Okay, so I think that's carried unanimously. So if we could, if it's approved, if we could look to condition that.
Okay, just to clarify, it would be a condition for a construction management plan, which would also cover the demolition work, so it would be any works on site.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Shires, did you wish to speak on this?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm not sure whether we can put this in as a condition or anything, really. But I've read through the papers, and it was the neighbours' responses, actually. And just with regards to aggressive and abusive behaviour from the current construction workers. And just, you know, really, is there anything that we can put in condition on place of that? Because the last thing we want is people feeling harassed or abused in their own homes. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think that's something we can condition. However, I've had some experience of this with a development near myself. And normally, a quick word with the site manager, you know, the phone call, particularly from a councillor, funnily enough, tends to do the job, and they will then speak to the workforce and remind them. So I have had this with a developer in my own sort of ward. I won't name names, but you know, I have had conversations. So that is something that, you know, can be followed up either by officers or by a councillor dealing it through sort of, you know, normal casework, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add to that, Councillor, yeah, it's not something we can condition, but I know in the past I have asked the enforcement officer when they've been going out to site to raise issues like wheel washing of vehicles, and there have been issues with abusive language, that she's also raised that with them, but there's nothing we can do under a planning condition, unfortunately.
Any other members? No? Okay, so all those in favour then of granting planning permission? Okay, that's okay. Against? And abstentions? Okay, so one abstention. Okay, so that has been approved. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I will now bring to a close this evening's planning meeting. I'd like to thank all our participants and once again, all the members for showing up. Thank you very much. This meeting is now closed. If we stop the